Hi Stacy, so I watched all the videos and I'm going to start with the ones that you sent me yesterday. So this is with the miler bit, and the first video you sent me of you riding, this looks like the speed of your flat walk, or his flat walk could be a tiny bit faster than that. You're sitting up very nice, shoulders over your hips, heels underneath your hips, so you look well balanced. And his head carriage, for the most part, is pretty good. It's just neutral. I know he kind of brings his head down too far at times. But when you're going here, he was pretty good. His legs are nice and separated. He's not pacing or trotting there. He's just doing a nice flat walk. When you come back around, this is more just like a trail walk. So that's much slower. So that's just a trail walk there, not a flat walk, but it looks nice and relaxed. So here as you're coming across, it looked like he was going too fast, and then you pulled on him and he tends to get behind the bit. And the miler bits usually bring their head down, but it looks like someone really taught him to really back off of the bit. So, you know, as you're pulling, you're kind of getting nothing because he's getting behind the bit. And then as he's going, he's still kind of overtucked because you have pressure. And of course, as soon as you let go, then he lets go. So we kind of have to teach him the opposite of your other horse, which I know you already know, is that we have to get him to keep his head up a little bit and not give so much to the bit and try to avoid it by bringing his head tucked in. Now, gait-wise, it looked like as you were coming across that he was starting to pace and you were trying to get him out of it. So there he was kind of pacey. You're trying to stop him. You're doing the right thing. He's just not responding because he's getting behind the bit. And then you did back him up, which was a good thing. And then you went forward again. So that was perfect, trying to tell him not to do the pace. And there he had a very good walk until right at the end when he put his head down again. Now here he's got a better head position, but he's just back at that trail walk. Okay, so now as you're coming across, you have a nice flat walk. His head is neutral. Everything's going well until about there where he starts getting his head down too far. So what I would try to do is we're trying to get him to know not to bring his head down so far anymore and get behind the bit. So what you want to do is as he's coming across, if you pick up pressure on both reins when he puts his head down, he's just going to back off more away from it. And again, if he was taught to give to the bit and over give to the bit, which some people have taught some of these horses, then when you apply pressure to both the reins, he's just going to tuck more and more and more. So what you want to try to do is elevate him up. As soon as you feel his head going down below like the top of the saddle or the top of your pommel, as you see it's starting to get low, as soon as you do, just take one rein, kind of pop it straight up towards the sky, and then don't hold it up there, because if you do, he's going to tuck his head again. You just want to associate him putting his head down with you kind of popping his head up and then immediately release. So again, as he's going, pop it up right there, and then I would have just pushed my hands forward again. But if we don't correct him each time he does it, he won't know that it's something we don't want. So what it looks like to me is that somebody taught him to give too much to the bit, and then they went fast, probably the speed of the trot. And so what he's learned to do is bring his head down in pace. So here you are coming across now. There it is. There he got a little pacey, tucked his head way in, and then he went back to a nice flat walk. So we're just going to keep popping his head up and then trying to half halt him, keep him at that speed of that flat walk for like 5 to 10 minutes. There it's much better and neutral, but I know as soon as you put any pressure, he keeps kind of bringing his head down too low. When he does do it right, you're correct. He has a nice head shaking walk. So you corrected him, and then he got a very nice walk at it. So that's the body position we want to keep for him to gait better, is just kind of neutral and not rounded too much. So here you come again. There he got a little pacey, then you got his head up. It's nice and neutral. And there he starts dropping it down again. So I would have kind of lifted up on that rein, done a little bit of a sharp jerk to get his head back up. And here you're trying to correct him, but as you're doing it, you kind of snap up on both reins, and then he gets behind the bit more. So what we're trying to do is just do one hand and then the other instead of both hands. So I'm going to play it again. So just watch your hands. The camera can only get so close, or it kind of gets fuzzy. So right there, but you're kind of doing it with both hands. And so instead of both hands, we want to just pop him up just with one hand, put it right back down, one hand, put it right back down, and make sure there's no pulling back this direction, because if you put it on pressure this way, he's going to tuck that head down even more. So you sent some nice videos of him running loose. So what I did see is that he mostly trots when he's loose, and he occasionally fell into a pace. And some horses are like that. They'll trot when they're loose and not much pace, but when you ride them, they will fall into a pace. But it's good to see that he does have a nice trot in there. Okay, so here he was cantering, and then he falls into a pace right there. So he's got some trot and some pace in him, and then he's got a very nice flat walk. So he's nice to see what they do loose, because you can see how their head carriage is. So he was pretty neutral when he was doing this nice flat walk. He speeds up in a minute. So we see where his head is lined up towards his wither, and so that's where we want to kind of keep it up to keep him more towards the trotty side and not go towards that pace under saddle. So he looks like he'll have a very nice gait. He does not overreach a whole bunch. In other words, he doesn't overstride. He just goes in his front hoof pocket, and I know you're trying hard to videotape him and lunge him at the same time, which you did a great job, because that's very difficult to keep a lazy horse going when you got the videotape on him. Okay, so you changed bits. At my recommendation, I said, you know, try a snaffle bit or a wonder bit, and you did, but of course he's still throwing his head down, but we're going to fix that. So right there, you're quite good. He gets it down low. He tries to get behind it, and then he changed his speed a little bit. When he's trying to do this, when he's trying to get way behind the bit, just take one hand, pop it up hard, bring it back down. As you do that, if he's trying to back behind it more, even when you do it with one hand, then what I want you to try to do is kind of nudge him a little bit hard with your heels when he does this, as well as kind of jerk up a little bit. And I don't care if he goes out of gait. I don't care if he gets faster. What we're trying to do is show him, if you do this, we're going to make it uncomfortable for you, because that's how we want to get the message across to him, is that we don't want him to do this anymore. So we have to make it uncomfortable for him to do this and not comfortable. So anytime he starts getting that head down even a little, and you're going to have to pay a lot of attention to his head. So as it starts to come down a little bit, you're going to jerk up. If that doesn't work, I want you to jerk up and kind of hit him with your heels and just go forward. And then when his head's not tucked in, then kind of breathe out, bring your energy down, and then see if he'll go back to a flat walk there. If that's not working, you can kind of yank up on one hand towards the sky, put it down, yank up on the other hand towards the sky. If that doesn't work, we can kind of scissor back and forth and kind of pop them up. So there are other things we can do, but the easiest one is usually just pop that rein straight up and then release it. Make sure you don't pull back on it. Pop it up and then kind of push your hands forward. And then repeat it over and over every single time he starts to bring that head down at all to tuck it in. Because again, right now he doesn't know. And if you only do it once in a while, he's still going to keep trying it. It has to be every single time he tries to tuck that head down, you're going to have to pop it back up. And we're going to have to do whatever we need to do to show him that. So again, just putting an uncomfortable experience with him putting his head down should help him to figure it out. So there, it's still too low, still too low. Right at the end, it was very good. I know he was messing around with you, and you did very good. I know he's not used to working 2 days in a row, so you did a great job. As you go forward, he tucks his head in, and you kind of jerk a couple of times. You do get it up, but when you jerk the first time, both hands, you'll see his head goes down further, and then you got it up there. So again, I would try one hand or the other instead of both at the same time, because again, he was probably taught that when they put pressure on both those reins or kind of jerked it, even if they jerked it up, because some Western people will do that, that he was supposed to put his head down. So I think right now he's a little confused, although I'm sure he is trying to get out of work. Here you come across again, he is still getting tucked in a little too much. So just one hand up towards the sky, then you could always use the opposite hand and then get him with your legs to drive him forward if he's still trying to back off. So here I know you didn't get much speed with him, because I know he was messing around, but he just kept getting lower and lower to try to get away from that bit. So overall, you did a good job trying to work with him. And what we're trying to do is try to get him to gait with his head more in this position. So another thing that you could do is carry a stick, and when he goes to tuck his head down too much, you could tap him on the shoulder. If that doesn't work, you could tap him a little bit under the chin, just very lightly, kind of being like an annoying fly. Just little taps, and that might help him to pop his head up also. If nothing is working, then we could always put an overcheck on them, and that will prevent the horse from bringing their head down too low. But usually we can just kind of pop it up, leave them alone. That's their reward, and they'll figure out over time not to tuck their head down too low. There's horses like this that people have ridden, and they've ridden them too fast and they've tucked their heads in too much, and so then they teach the horse to pace because they go too fast. They pace with their head down, and then that makes it very hard for us to get them to gait, because now they've learned to kind of over round their neck, but they still tense up their back. So it's a little bit of a difficult situation, but we'll be able to get him through it. I think this bit will work better in time. And I would just do the things I was talking about with popping your hands up, keep a stick nearby. So if that's not working, you can carry the stick. And again, first I would pop with one hand. If that doesn't work, I would pop with one hand. Then with the other hand, if that doesn't work, then I would pop with one hand and hit him with your legs at the same time. And you can put a word in with it too, like so he knows it's not what you want. And then when he's walking and he's got a good head carriage, tell him he's a good boy and just kind of relax and give him a little rub as you're walking. Again, if those things don't work, then as you pop your hand up, give him a little tap in the shoulder. If that doesn't work, you can do the jerk the rein up, tap him in the shoulder, hit him with your legs at the same time. If that doesn't work, then you can kind of still pop his head up and then just kind of touch him under the chin lightly with the end of that stick, just so he won't like it. Most of the horses don't like to be tickled in the face under there. So if you just kind of tickle him with it, that should help him to get his head up too. And if you carry a longer whip, like a dressage whip, then you could have it kind of up in here. So you're ready to lift that whip up and touch his face lightly if he starts to get down too far. So that should give you a lot of options to get him, to get that head up. I think once you do that, you'll be able to do things with him to practice that flat walk for longer periods of time, like 5 to 10 minutes each direction. And once we can keep his head up and he can keep that flat walk, then we can start working on his next gait. He looks like he'll probably either have a running walk or a saddle gait that'll be next. But I would get this flat walk down consistent, keeping his head in more of this position, a neutral position, before we start working on that next gait. All right, let me know if you have questions.